hotels, and people go, well, of course you're going to get good reviews, James, because you're 4 or 5 star and we're only 3 star, or we're only a motel and you're a hotel. And I suppose from that perspective, why would you say some places get great reviews? Do you think it is orientated around their star value as such, or do you think it is more orientated to what we've talked about just then around the under offering and over delivering?
Yeah, I think it's actually got nothing to do with the stars at all. It's all about expectations. To me, my experience of reviews and where I see that they originally came from is out of hostels, because there's such a range in hostels, and you really want to get an idea as to what you might actually be expecting, particularly in some of the Asian countries as well, where service standards are very different. Particularly in the very low-end markets. So I think that, that assumption is wrong. Hotels, for example, you can at least expect a bed and a bathroom, whereas in the hosteling world that's not always the case. So yeah, as we've talked about, I think great reviews is about balancing the expectations. Absolutely everybody tells me that they're centrally located, which I find quite funny. Whether or not you're a 5-star or you're a hostel, you're all centrally located, but it doesn't really tell me anything. And that's about those expectations. If you still have to walk 10 blocks to get to into town, then you've got to, that wasn't really what you're expecting. So that's going to make a difference to your review of the place, as opposed to, with a 5-star place, you relatively expect that it's going to be somewhere relative, pretty central, and that they probably meant what they said. So that's where it comes in as more important. But it is all just about balancing that, what you believe before you arrive versus what you get.
Maybe the next point on from that then is, how do you get reviews? I can see here that in the questions, Pam Walton's asking, do you think that some business owners specifically ask guests to give a review? I mean, I've certainly seen that from my perspective, and I know that there's some ways that we've used in properties that I've managed before. But from your perspective, yeah, how do you feel, and how do you believe you can get reviews? How do you encourage reviews?
I think it's a case of simply asking. I give the classic example of in a restaurant. In a good quality restaurant, someone will come up and say, how did it go? How was the service? And that just gives you an opportunity to say something about it. And it's just that it's quite natural, it's easy, and it just forms a part of what you do. So, I mean, it's mentioning it at check-in, it's mentioning it when they check out, and I've read some fascinating articles about, it's about giving people that space to feel like they can complain, but also feel like they can comment. I mean, my suggestions are that, obviously the obvious one, which is ask, but putting up signs, places putting up signs in the room and the reception, opening the door for it, and that you get, I mean, and classically, I know places leave the forms around the place, which have had mixed impressions, but and the most successful one is actually just to send them a link. It's to send them an email at the end of their stay that says, "Hi, thanks for staying with us. We do appreciate your custom. We would love it if you left us a review," and then giving them some options of places that they could leave reviews with direct links. I mean, all the online booking engines like booking.com and stuff, they actually already do this, and they generate truckloads of reviews simply by doing that, because it's easy. And if you're not interested, you just delete. Done.
I think that's the key from my experience, is that it is very much about being slightly explicit with it, but also personal. And I mean, that's where at times, if we knew someone had a really great stay, and in our team meetings each week, we'd encourage our team members to email them, "Oh, we'd love for you to go on and write a review." The other thing that we have done as well is leave business cards, put it in the in-room directory, and it is really kind of being explicit. It isn't about kind of just sitting and waiting for someone to write a review. I mean, personally, I've got to say that I regularly look at reviews before I travel, and I know lots of other people are too. And as you pointed out at the beginning, it may have started as a big European and a US thing, but I think it's more and more becoming the case that New Zealanders are also visiting these review sites. I think it's something that people really do have to do. It's not too much of an option, but more of a requirement now.
But it also, I mean, it's a different feeling though too. It is a touch of service. Like I care what you think about your experience. I value your input in my business, and that I'm willing to change to improve. It all says something about the business that makes you feel good about staying there, that you will be looked after in a manner that you expect.
What do you say to those owners of properties? And I mean, I think as well we do have to look at it from an attraction perspective as well, and go, what do you say when they typically become an ostrich and stick their head in the sand and just say, well, I'm ignoring these sites, I'm going to ignore the negative comments? What would your response be to that?
Well, it's very silly. I mean, there's a lot of people doing it, but the interesting thing is are you ignoring it because there's something negative, or are you just don't want to know? How you respond to a review makes such a difference. Like most people, I mean, you know, classic one, the toilet breaks, you know, at a place, or we had one with the Hector's dolphins, and then we didn't see the dolphins on that day. But it's about how the business responded to that situation, and that's really all a new customer cares about, is that if a problem happens to arise whilst I'm there, how are you going to respond to that problem? And that's really what, to me, the whole point of not sticking your head in the sand is that you actually need to just respond and be out there, because if you just leave the comments, then people basically are given the impression that you don't care. You're not interested in dealing with problems, and you don't care. Whereas a simple response that says, hey, thanks for your feedback, we're looking into it, can make all the difference, because ironically it's not actually that customer that reads the review again. They've been to stay at your place, they're not going to read reviews. It's a new customer that's reading them that says, oh, okay, all right, they dealt with that problem that way. You know, how might they deal with my issues?
I think that's the key, is when you are running a business, things happen. And I think rather than trying to pretend that issues don't happen and things don't come up, it's about actually extending your customer service, I'd say. And it's very much about also saying to these people who think about thinking about sticking their head in the sand, well, these reviews are going to be there anyway, regardless of whether you go on and look at them or regardless of whether you go on and reply to them. They will be there. And I suppose from my perspective, it's like saying, well, would you take a copy of a letter, a negative letter you've been sent, photocopy it 1,000 times and throw it out in the wind on a busy street? Because, I mean, we're actually talking about something a lot worse than that, because tens of thousands of people can see this review.
Yeah, and it's a really simple, quick response that just shows, oh yeah, okay, we're on to that. We might do something about it. I mean, it can be a really easy response, but it's just showing that you actually are aware and monitoring it and actually improving your business.
You have to look at your own business. If you are getting ongoing negative reviews, well, maybe you do have to look at your delivery method or what you're doing. And I mean, I suppose that comes on to then the ways of combating the negative reviews. And a point that Pam's raised here on the screen just now, it's well, how do you cope when someone who complains on a review site could have asked something of the owner while they were there, and it could have all been fixed and sorted? I suppose that was always my frustration, and as Pam said here, it is so frustrating. What would you say to that?
Well, I understand it, but I also understand that most people fall into a category of not wanting to create conflict. I mean, if you think about how many of us have had a restaurant meal that we weren't happy with, or a coffee that was burnt. And, I mean, it should be replaced. Basically, you should just walk back up to the desk with your coffee and explain that it's been burnt and it should be replaced. Do any of us do this? Very few, because it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for you, you know, you don't like conflict, all these sorts of reasons, and so you'd much rather not say anything, but you're still annoyed. I mean, and that's where the reviews come out. Now, I can understand from a business perspective it is very frustrating, but you've also got to feel that your customers as well potentially they don't feel confident enough to raise the issue with you on a face-to-face basis.
And I think that's where, within your business practices as an accommodation provider, I mean, Pam's saying here that she certainly would go back and take the coffee back, and I mean, personally, I would too. But I think the key is that you, I think as a business owner, it's about making sure that you put quality checks within your service as well, and making sure that you are checking back with people who are staying with you a few days. Is everything okay? And giving them the opportunity rather than expecting them to come to you. But I mean, I suppose taking it one step further than that, I think we also do need to be clear as an industry that there is an expectation. If something's wrong, we do want our customers to come and tell us about it. And I think if we're clear with that in the way that we deliver our service and make it very open, I think that we should be discouraging this. Well, I didn't want to say anything then, but I'm prepared to go on to a website and spout off about it in public. That was always my real